every time we get to it, I keep thinking of the Jetsons. And
Yeah.
yes, I know I'm dating myself, but the fact that we can have a Rosie, I'm like, yeah, I want a Rosie.
Welcome to another episode of AI with Sally, an EE Times podcast that brings you inside my conversations with luminaries of the AI chip industry. In this episode, recorded live at Nvidia's GTC in San Jose, I'm joined by Tirias Research Principal Analyst Jim McGregor to talk about the major announcements from the show. That's Groq's integration into Nvidia's products, SpectrumX optical networking, NemoClaw, and a few other things too. Here's my conversation with Jim.
Okay, Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Which show am I at now?
Yeah, we're at GTC.
That's right. Okay.
We're live from San Jose, all the way from GTC. I want to ask you first about my favorite topic, which is the thing I absolutely was waiting to see here at GTC, which is Groq and what's happening to Groq. Been following Groq for a really long time, and I am thrilled to see so much detail, even from what we've got from Jensen today about Groq. How awesome was it to see Groq chips in the roadmap?
Considering they just acquired Groq last year, late last year, it's amazing to see that already integrated, not just at the chip level, but all the way at a system level solution with the Groq V3 LPX. So, introducing a brand new platform just around that technology is, in such a short period of time, is phenomenal.
So you said full production as well, right? Did I hear that right?
Well, they are planning on release of the systems in Q3.
Okay.
So they are already in production of the chip. Samsung's actually producing the chip for them. And you'd assume that they're already building the systems too, but obviously there's a lag time there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. One thing that caught my eye was on the Groq chip there, it says V3.
V3, exactly.
And so the Groq chip, what is deployed right now in Groq's data centers, or what was Groq's data centers, is the V1.
Exactly.
This chip has been around for a really long time. It's maybe 6 years old or something at this point. We were promised a V2, but then now what Jensen's coming with is a V3. Did we get any clues today about what's in the V3?
We did not get a clue on what the difference is and what happened to 2.
Yeah, what happened?
I have, it's probably what they did was they took V2 and made some adjustments to it. So they called it the V3. Because obviously you can't expect Nvidia to acquire the IP and not change it somewhat. And that was a key part of the acquisition. It wasn't really full acquisition of Groq, the company. It was an acquisition of the people and the IP.
Right. Yeah, I guess that was my working theory as well. Like maybe they looked at the V2 or the design for the V2 and maybe made some tweaks to fit in a little bit. I also attended the session with Jonathan this afternoon where he was talking about the link is apparently NVLink between Nvidia and Groq. Groq approached Nvidia to use NVLink when that announcement broke maybe a year ago. So,
yes.
Yeah, it's interesting how things come together.
And it's also going to be SpectrumX between the chassis. Matter of fact, I should say it's going to be a modified SpectrumX, and didn't get detail on that today, other than the fact that it's going to be a low latency version. Now, not unusual. Throughout my career, I've seen people use Ethernet in different ways with different protocol stacks, different handshaking, different timing configurations. So you can do a lot with Ethernet if you're willing to make the change.
Yeah. We did have some stuff on co-packaged optics this afternoon as well, which has been really good.
And the most important part is we're seeing them actually for the first time, Nvidia for the first time, say that it's not just for scale out, but also for scale up, especially with the Feynman generation.
Yes. Scale up and scale out for co-packaged optics. I mean, scale up and scale out with optics, those are two totally different technologies, right? Or is this part of the same?
It's in the same family, but yes, you are looking at it a little bit differently. But the most important part is, and I think part of that also came from a lot of the hyperscalers who are looking up and saying, listen, we can do a lot with that if we actually put it in the rack. And it's not a new concept. I mean, I was in Motorola. We actually did optical backplanes 20 years ago. So it's a costly thing.
Yes.
And that's the big thing, is the cost of putting it inside the rack.
Yes.
So, but Still, you're talking about co-packaged optics. So when you get down to the physical aspects of it, it is still the same basic technology.
How much money can we make, or how much money can we? I know you said the more you buy, the more you save, or whatever it is. But how much can we really gain from combining now Vera Rubin with Groq with the co-packaged optics that he's talking about? Yeah, I mean, he had this bar graph, and it was like trillions.
Well, $1 trillion.
I mean, it was crazy
in 2027. So saying by the end of 2026. Looking at $500 billion market, looking at $1 trillion opportunity by the end of 2027. Well, I think that, first off, I think the demand is there.
Yeah.
We're seeing wave after wave after wave and innovation after innovation. They talked about OpenClaw today. And in fact, just in 90 days, that's just exploded. And, is becoming a local agent solution that you can develop on and use, and almost anybody can, with some limitations. But the demand is there. I think the real challenge, and this is something I think they tried to address today, was the fact that the challenge is bringing the cost of using it down as much as possible, bringing efficiency into the platform, reducing the price or the cost per token. Which obviously, as we saw with DeepSeek last year, when you reduce the cost of doing something, demand explodes. And that's what we're seeing today.
Yeah, I mean, Nvidia isn't known for being cheap, but it's more like, let's improve the throughput let's improve the latency at the same time. And then it improves cost per token. We're not talking about making these cheaper, are we?
Well, we are talking about making the tokens cheaper.
Per token.
Per token. But yes, there is a huge upfront cost. I will agree with that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And they're really talking about, the chip to the system or the rack, and there's the entire infrastructure that has to go with that.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of change going on there, especially right now. We're kind of learning from what the automotive industry learned from 100 years ago. That you almost have to, if you really want to be efficient, you have to manufacture it in a plant and then be able to put it someplace. Doing everything custom on site, I think is running its course. And we have to get to the point, because of labor, because of cost, because of quality, we have to be able to manufacture those things and just transport them to the site now.
I want to come back to Groq for a minute. I have more questions. One of the questions is, we didn't see much about Rubin CPX. So we're talking about disaggregated inference with Groq. Groq's going to take on part of the workload. Nvidia already had announced the Rubin CPX 6 months ago or so, talking about taking on part of the workload. But to be clear, the Groq LPU and the Rubin CPX are not going to those are going to both coexist along with Vera Rubin in the same context, right?
Exactly. And yeah, it is surprising that we didn't hear about Rubin CPX. I think we all kind of expected that, and we haven't heard much about it since they announced it. But it is going to be part of the value chain.
Yes.
So they will coexist. So there's another rack level system in that solution that we'll see. So actually 6 racks. And even talking to Bill Daly, their chief scientist this evening, he's like, we're going to continue to see innovation in different areas and different places. So, it's not going to, we're probably going to see other types of racks or other types of specialty functions as we continue to innovate.
So the picture or the visual that Jensen had was like a Vera Rubin rack and a Groq rack, like right next door. But some of the other things he said suggested Groq could be 25% of the data center or something like that.
Yeah, he actually, and that's the first time I think I've heard Nvidia really talk about potential data center configuration using these different types of solutions. And once again, they also introduced a storage platform today. So that was one of the 5 systems. So I think and they're going to be using optical.
Yes.
So they don't have to be right next to each other.
Right. They can be on the other side of the data center.
Or the other side of the rack. Yeah, exactly. So, but obviously, it's going to be in a completely independent rack, as well as potentially, and you could still put them all in a rack if you wanted to, but also potentially have a completely separate rack for Vera, the CPU.
Yes. Right, tell us a bit more about Vera Rubin, because this new Vera Rubin stuff was just kind of announced today. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, we don't have a lot of the technical details on Rubin at this point in time, but Vera, at least from what we've learned, they're trying to make a CPU that is really targeted towards just these AI workloads, really designed to really feed the beast, if you will. Make sure that you have all those accelerated resources running at peak capacity. And they said, listen, we need a lot of cores. And we need a lot of memory bandwidth, and we need it to be very efficient. So it's the first CPU that we know of, data center CPU, using LPDDR5. So the low power version. And it's going to be very, very high core count. And they're going to be racking and stacking these just like they do with the GPUs, liquid cooled and everything else. And yeah, we're still waiting for the specs on that. But obviously they're not trying to create a general purpose data center GPU. They're really trying to create a specially sorry, not GPU, CPU. They're trying to create a special purpose CPU that's really going to be maximized for throughput.
I'm curious about, with Nvidia's CPUs being ARM-based, how we think this is going to affect ARM's market share in the data center. Because I feel like a lot of ARM's share in the data center is Nvidia right now.
Well, actually, I'd say that probably the biggest vendor of ARM-based products in the data center is actually Huawei.
Oh, interesting.
But there's not a lot of clarity into what they ship. Matter of fact, a lot of times they don't even announce the products. So they actually ship more than anybody else that I'm aware of.
I did not know that, Jim.
Yes. So you have Huawei and you have a couple other vendors and that. Obviously, I think it helps them. But you got to remember that the entire data center industry is growing. And one thing we've seen, especially as all these different products mature over time, especially in the data center, usually companies start out with a standard ARM architecture and then migrate to a custom, more modified or optimized architecture. So there's a question there. And you have to remember, NVIDIA has done custom ARM cores before. So this generation, from what I understand, is going to be standard ARM cores, but that doesn't preclude NVIDIA from possibly doing something, more customized or optimized. But once again, they could work with ARM to make sure that they have the types of cores that they need. We don't really have a roadmap for that at this point.
It'll be interesting to watch and I guess see what happens. All right, we did mention OpenClaw, but I want to talk to you a little bit more about this because the graph that was shown in the keynote was, other, like Linux taking off, and then OpenClaw's adoption rate was straight through the roof. I mean, this is unlike anything we've ever seen before,
I would liken it to like ChatGPT or even DeepSeek. Where it came on the market and boom, everyone had to figure it out. And we're seeing that. In fact, we've played with it and found out very quickly that you need to be aware of what could happen if you're not paying attention. So it is a great agentic tool for creating agents to do a lot of phenomenal things using your information, your data, and you can actually do it locally. But there are limitations to it in the fact that if you don't bound that effectively, it can go rogue. Or could even maybe overwrite its parameters or forget its rules that you've installed. And that's very, very dangerous. And I don't think a lot of companies have realized that, especially if they've just started using it. Now they're introducing, NVIDIA saw that, and they're trying to create something that can kind of bound that with the security layer or a wrapper, if you will. And that's NemoClaw. And I'll be honest with you, that was probably the most exciting part of what I saw today. I mean, it's great to see systems and solutions and new models and everything else, but that's a very new level of innovation. And being able to do that and giving people that solution to where you can actually develop those OpenClaw solutions in that bounded box. And even using some of their other models as kind of managers or resources around it, like Nemotron and stuff like that. That's a very powerful kind of platform environment that you can use.
I must admit, I'm intrigued. I didn't know very much about OpenClaw.
Oh, I'm excited.
But to see those figures was, very exciting.
There's so many things I want to do with it. So it is incredible. And, it's funny because we're seeing so much innovation by people saying, I want to start a company doing this, and going off and having agents help them do everything
for sure
from scratch.
Yeah, for sure. So I was at Synopsys Converge a few days ago, and they were talking about agents basically for chip design or for different parts of the chip design process. They're at the stage where they have groups of agents and orchestration for all of these agents working together. So I think there isn't going to be a part of our lives that agents don't touch.
I would definitely agree with that. I still think that there's a kind of a learning and trust curve.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not even a learning curve; it's a trust curve we have to get over with. Matter of fact, it's kind of funny because even a year and a half ago at Hot Chips, that was a key thing, was using AI for chip design, and even Nvidia was like, "Well, there's certain things we don't want it to do yet."
Yeah.
So but we're going to get there to where you're going to be able to use agents for just about everything. And I guess the one thing everyone needs to get over is the fact that it's not one agent.
Yes.
It's likely to be multiple agents for different functions, different things. And it's also going to be agents using other agents.
Yes.
So it's very much building a team or a collective to do what you want to do. And I think that's probably the greatest innovation that we're seeing today. Matter of fact, according to our forecast at Tirias Research, we're going to have more AI users by 2027 or in 2027 than we have people on the planet, because we're going to have agents using agents.
Yeah, again at Converge, Jensen was on stage talking about every Nvidia engineer is going to use so many agents, and they're all going to use so many Synopsys licenses or whatever. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see this change.
Thinking of that, it's a huge, huge change.
What else are we excited about from GTC? Anything we didn't mention?
Well, obviously, you can't walk away from any show today, even MWC or Embedded World, without talking about robots.
Sure, yeah. Okay, the robots.
You got to talk about robots.
We've got to talk about the robots. So apparently there are 110 robots here on the GTC floor. I'm going to go around tomorrow and try and spot as many as I can.
And they said that they're working with I don't know if it's every major or every robotics company that they know of, on different robotic solutions. Obviously, that ranges from industrial to creative to humanoids.
Yeah.
They brought Olaf from Frozen on stage as a robot, and it was pretty impressive, I will admit.
That was cute. Yeah, that was really nice.
But no, it's funny because just coming off Embedded World, I was there with Nitin, and at CES and MWC, it was kind of about, seeing the robots, the big robots, and having them walk around, do things. At Embedded World, it was about everything that enables the robots. And I'll be honest with you, especially humanoids, there's still so much we have to do, because you have to think that a humanoid has to have an entire nervous system. It's not just the brain, it's the nervous system and the kind of the muscle reaction that you'd have. And there's still a lot of work to do there, but it's very interesting to see how quickly the industry is moving towards making that a reality.
What do you see at the edge when we talk about robots, whether it's humanoids or other small robots? Is this somewhere Nvidia still is dominating like they do in the data center? I feel like there's more of a power efficiency play in smaller robots. They obviously have small batteries in.
Well, not just in the smaller robots, but also in the nervous system. So if you have a complex robot like a humanoid, you're probably going to want, just like you would in a car, little electronic control units for the hand, for
the motor control,
the motor control, the sensors, because you're going to need temperature sensors, you're going to need pressure sensors, all these different sensors to be able to do that. So you're probably going to have one here, you may have one in the shoulder, you may have one in the knees. So you're going to have multiple control units. So I think that there's a place for that. It's kind of a zonal architecture, like we would think of a car.
For the car, yeah.
So there's a lot of innovation to be done on the high end and the low end.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that, and I don't think we're talking about this enough, in the fact that we need to start thinking about these solutions kind of as a workflow and a larger platform, not individual silos. So like robotics, in a lot of cases, you're going to need more intelligence in the network. That might be in the RAN, it might be in a router, but to your point, when you get to form factor, you get to weight, you get to battery power, you're going to want to limit what you put on the system. And you're right, there is a power play there. But at the same time, you're going to need something else in the network that is doing your sensor fusion from all these different robots.
Right.
That's doing the larger LLMs that you can't run on the robots. And that's orchestrating for all the different robots, because we don't have swarm computing at this point, or swarm AI at this point. So, and they've talked about that a little bit, putting more intelligence in the network. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think the thing about Nvidia, and you're right, there is a power play there, and I think we'll see a lot of players and a lot of different solutions. But Nvidia has, just like they did with automotive, they built an entire environment around it.
Yes.
And having that Cosmos for mapping the entire world, having Isaac Sim for actually simulating that and doing training and with simulated data and everything else, having Groq as they call it a frontier model, not a foundational model, but a frontier model. Having those solutions, that kind of puts them ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
That gives, and they're not going to be the end solution maybe in all the robot solutions, but they're likely going to be, whether it's on the hardware or software side, there's probably going to be some Nvidia component still involved in creating, empowering, or training and running that robotic solution.
Yeah. Well, yeah, very exciting, and what a time to be alive, right?
It's incredible, as I keep thinking about, and every time we get to it, I keep thinking of the Jetsons. And yes, I know I'm dating myself, but the fact that we can have a Rosie, I'm like, I want a Rosie.
I kind of want one too. Yeah, that would be awesome. Perfect place to finish. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim, for the chat. If you want to see more of our GTC coverage, check the links on the podcast page at eetimes.com. That brings us to the end of the episode. Please tune in again next time for more conversations around AI silicon and systems. AI with Sally is brought to you by AskMcCall Media. Thank you so much for listening.